This question is definitely messy. The sentences that we need to combine are kind of confusing, and it's just like a lot of text. So what I'm going to do here is just jump to the correct answer to start. And just to show you the kinds of things we need to think about for a question like this. So the answer is A, and I don't think that this jumps off as obviously the best one, but remember here what we're trying to do with these questions. If we really correctly predict the question and try to get on the right page about what our task is, we're combining these sentences and we need to think about the ideas and how the ideas combine and the ideas flow together. This isn't really about grammar. In fact, all of these answer choices are grammatically correct. It's also not really about style in this case, or maybe it is in the way that kind of like the ideas need to flow, but it's hard to see which choice is best just by looking at them because none of them is like distinctively shorter than the others. And that's going to happen sometimes when we have these big sentences that need to be combined. But when we think about things like flow, the flow of the ideas, how easy it is for the reader to move from one to the other, we want to look out for things like punctuation that we normally associate with grammar because punctuation shows a shift in the structure of the sentence, and the more you shift, the harder it is to have the sentence flow from one idea to the other. So let's look at A, and I'm going to use highlighting here to show the main sentence and the additional pieces. So when applied to apples, that's clearly a introduction to the sentence. 1 MCP lengthens storage life by 3 to 4 times. Okay, it's a little backward sounding, but that's the main sentence. And then at the end here, allowing producers to sell their apples in the off-season months after the apples have been harvested. This other comma shows me I'm adding another thing onto my main idea. So in this case, there's a lot of extra stuff, but the main sentence in green is pretty easy to recognize. It follows pretty traditional ways of structuring sentences, right? We attach things usually on the ends of sentences, and the main core of the sentence is pretty clear. Let's compare that to B. Here we have producers are allowed to sell their apples months after they are harvested. That sounds like a main sentence here. And then the double dash is grammatically valid, but it's weird because it's kind of interrupting this main sentence with, I don't know, just something that normally wouldn't be separated out. It would just be kind of part of the main flow, and here it's kind of just inserted in the middle. Then we have because 1 MCP, which is kind of continuing this idea from the original part of the sentence. Then we have another interruption when applied to apples, lengthens their storage life by 3 to 4 times. Maybe it doesn't look as obvious to you, but to me, this sentence is a giant mess. We are constantly, going from the main sentence to these little additional parts, then back, and we're doing it in places that don't make a lot of logical sense. It's just very difficult to even tell what the main point is because we're shifting between all these things so much. And so that's not good. The flow of that sentence is bad. Your reader won't know your point because you're constantly moving the reader away from that point. So you want to avoid that, and these combined sentences questions sometimes are testing that. So it's hard to hear, but we do kind of end up thinking about grammar in a way, even if none of the grammar is technically wrong. Again, the sentence is correct grammatically. This is all valid ways to interrupt a sentence. It's just we're doing too much of it, and it's getting confusing. Let's keep going now. Let's look at C. Here, 1 MCP length and storage life, so that's kind of the main point there. Then when applied to apples, I guess by 3 to 4 times. I don't even know at this point if that's supposed to be part of the main sentence or not. I guess it is, because if I removed the pink, I could just say 1 MCP lengthen storage life by 3 to 4 times. That's a sentence, that's an idea, but it's being interrupted and then allowing producers to sell their apples months after the apples have been harvested in the off-season. So, yeah, this one maybe isn't as bad as B, but again, it's kind of confusing how that we're breaking that green apart, and normally we do this a lot in writing. We have a main idea that we interrupt, but when there's so many interruptions and pieces of this sentence, it gets confusing for the reader to know which parts are essential and which parts are extra. And your reader isn't supposed to have to do what we're doing here. They're not supposed to have to like dissect a sentence to understand it. So I don't know. Hopefully this is helping. It's very confusing. So if you're confused, it's okay. Let's look at D. Here we have an introductory clause. Months after apples have been harvested. Okay, then we, I guess, go into the main sentence. Producers are allowed to sell their apples. Then in the off season, again, for some reason, is randomly set off from the sentence. Then I guess we come back to the main sentence because 1 MCP lengthens the storage life, and then when applied to apples by 3 to 4 times. So that, I guess, is still part of the main sentence. But here we start to have weird other problems with the ideas. We're not applying 1 MCP 3 to 4 times to the apples. We are extending the life of the apples by 3 to 4 times. And that is what choice A makes very, very clear. The ideas that belong together, the main point that this sentence is trying to make, is just condensed, easy to follow, and then other things are added on, but the main piece is very coherent, right? 1 MCP lengthens storage life by 3 to 4 times. Easy to follow. And that's what makes it best. So I'll just say, this is a lot for one question, but occasionally for these combined sentences, you will need to think like this. I don't think that most of the time you have to do it for all 4 choices. Usually there's some other more obvious problems that make 1 or 2 of them go away. Here though, yeah, we do kind of need to think about the flow. And I will say, one thing you could do if you're ever kind of on the fence about some of these choices is like count up the punctuation marks. Generally here, the fewer the better. There are exceptions that I've seen, but if you have fewer punctuation marks, in theory, you have fewer interruptions, fewer shifts in the sentence, and so your reader would probably be able to follow that sentence better. But these are tough. There's a lot of things to consider with these combined sentences questions. But I'll just end on this. The one thing that we don't really ever have to consider is grammar. Every sentence is going to be grammatically correct. It's about other ways of analyzing a sentence, the style, the flow, the ideas. So keep your brain on that track, and you're more likely to at least consider choices in the correct way.